All right, hello everyone. We're doing a flash astrology reading of what happened today with Alexander Boris, and I got Dorje here, and we're gonna look at his chart first, and then we're gonna look at the transits of today, and we're gonna have fun picking apart what we speculate might have occurred on the stage, on this narrative stage of the world, and we're going to start by looking at his chart. Dorje just stepped away for a minute, and there he is. He's back. So Dorje, say hello, and then let's get started.
Hey, hello everybody. Hey Mario, good to see you again. So, yeah, Boris Johnson today he was forced to resign from being he was forced to resign from being the Prime Minister of England. He's had a very challenging career as Prime Minister. It's been marked with a lot of scandal, and so it's a huge sea change in the politics. Like England is very involved in the whole kind of what's going on over there with the Ukraine and Russia going at each other. England's just come out of Brexit. And he's been a hugely controversial figure in England because of his crazy approach to being prime minister, and he had a little bit of a Trumpian quality where he didn't really care what all the scandals were around him. He just kept going, and I think all of that is visible in the chart. Before he was involved in English politics, he was born in New York. I believe he went to. Let's see. I'm going to just go here. I believe in his early years he went to. There's a lot of information on him here. Let me move this over here. And, I believe in his early years he went to Cambridge. No, Oxford. He was a student at Oxford. But then he also was a journalist in his early years. Before he entered British politics, which I find really interesting because as we look over here and look at this, we can see that he had a very strong grouping of planets, stellium in Gemini, which is an information sign. He spent some time as a journalist. I think he was also working in Europe as a journalist, and so that Gemini is in the 9th house of foreign lands. Anyway, so here's this chart. What are your impressions when you see it, Mario?
First thing I look at is I see the moon on the ascendant, and it's in Scorpio, so it's an intensely magnetic kind of social presence, right? Eyes are on him, like he gets all the focus. Plus Neptune's there in a loose conjunction. Neptune's in Scorpio as well, and if you look, his moon's ruling the 10th. So that's ruling his public stage. So we're looking at a figure whose presence on the public stage is always vacillating. It's never, right? The moon is moody, never stays the
True.
same. So it was shifty, right? So it's the fastest moving body we have. And so he doesn't have a stable presence on the stage of, on the narrative, right, of our modern world. And so that's the first thing I see. How about you? Oh, and it's opposing on Mars. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I get that. I feel like that moon is, the moon comes and goes. It's full sometimes, it's empty other times. So you find that, or I find that people who have moon prominent in their chart, they really have lots of ups and downs within their life. They have, and if that moon's in Scorpio, so what kinds of ups and downs? Ups and downs that are coming from crazy behavior and like intense emotional reaction from other people that is very visible because that moon is it's in the 10th house. So I think you're right. We have a magnetic figure. And that moon being angular, ruling the 10th, means that there's this quality of really being able to change the world around him, transform the world around him. Because I always look at Scorpio as the sign of the transformer. And then so we have the transformative moon, the always changing moon in the sign of the transformator, ruling the 10th, where the north node is, which can be kind of like some kind of destiny. I mean, that north node, south node, it's part of this grand trine going on between the moon and Saturn and the north and the south node. So it's kind of like he has this like destiny he has to play out in the world. I definitely catch on with that moon being very strong there. Another thing that really strikes me with this chart is that Jupiter exactly opposed Neptune. Hey, what do you think about that, Mario? I mean, how do you see that playing out?
Expanding the delusions both on the stage and off the stage. You know what I mean? Like no sense of measure in terms of his conception of the big picture, what is happening in his reality. Like there was never any stable conception or means or like just a sense of, Jupiter's your sense of perspective, your sense of measure, your sense of balancing the expansion and of things, and Neptune is your sense of reality, whether you're seeing their density physical world or whether you're looking deeper through the spiritual dimensions. It's with Neptune in aspect to Jupiter, there's no sense of measure between what's real and what's not. So there's a
That's interesting. I think that's true with the moon too. I also find that the
yes,
moon rules illusion.
yeah,
And so we have two testimonies for this guy is like he's either making illusion or he's deluded by other people's illusions, or
or
both
he's an
simultaneously.
actor in the whole delusional stage of the narrative, and he's like
Yeah,
a
absolutely,
perfect kind of
absolutely.
storm.
Yeah. That Neptune opposed Jupiter opposed Neptune. Another like common thing with Jupiter that I find and Neptune is both of them like blow through boundaries. Like they don't like they can't sit in the boundaries that are set before them. And so I find with that prominent Neptune or prominent Jupiter, like that person's not going to like fit into the definitions that like maybe their bosses want them to. I mean, the guy was prime minister, does he have bosses or not? We can speculate on that. Certainly he has the people who are like
Certainly
keeping
there's
him in
people
power and
above.
working for him,
Yeah.
but he's blowing through their boundaries just as much as he's blowing through everybody else's boundaries because he has this aspect that's uncontainable. Maybe, yeah, I mean, maybe that Saturn is trying to rein him in. But look at that Saturn. It's retrograde in Pisces. That's like a boundaryless Saturn, and it's square Mars. I mean, what do you think when you see Saturn square Mars in a chart?
Well, I think that's the third testimony, along with its opposition to Uranus and Pluto in the 11th house, which rules the public. And that square to Mars is going to cause a lot of conflict, both inner and outer. And that Mars is in the 8th, so that's his relationship to power. And he's got Saturn in the 5th, which is going to be, I mean, that's where the fun is in life, but no fun for him with Saturn there, right? It's all restriction. And opposing Uranus, I mean, definitely tension with power, fights, problems with power, like definitely the realm of the fool. This is someone who would never have a secure basis in power. And sure enough, he's in and he's out, right? How many years? 3 years, 3 years he's been
Yeah,
in.
3.5 years.
Was he
Yeah.
put in for this? Like, we don't know. But what I can see is that like that, and here's an aspect for that third testimony, all of these aspects of Saturn here actually, but the Saturn opposing Uranus, that's kind of a similar contrast with Jupiter and Neptune. I mean, you have Saturn would promote a sense of stability, a sense of contraction, a sense of solidification of their density reality. Whereas Uranus, like you were saying about Jupiter and the moon, Uranus destroys boundaries. It's a little different than Jupiter and the moon, how they do it. But Uranus brings chaos, right?
Yeah.
So this is a person who is going to be ordered for a certain amount of time, and then he's going to blow up his own office and be like, now it's time for chaos. And then get too chaotic and say, okay, I got to bring order back. Get too bored and then say, okay, I got to bring chaos back. This is, you know what I mean? Like this is like almost a mage kind of marker, or aspect where this guy's like playing with the forces of order and chaos. What about you? What do you think?
Well, no, I think that's absolutely the case. And you know, like the scandals that he's had that have become public, or the scandals that have been made public, or whatever, they all seem to have to do with like partying or sex. I mean, his resignation that he came up with was because he was trying to promote someone to being a cabinet minister who had a sexual abuse complaint against them. But there's that's Saturn in the sixth right there, in the fifth. And Saturn in the fifth there is really going to then be about this kind of like, um, it's going to be about, you know, karma from partying, karma from excessively partying. And so his previous scandal was like hosting cocktail and wine parties during the COVID lockdown when he was telling everybody else to like stay at home. Then the previous scandals with that are like getting caught with mistresses. And so like, you know, you kind of look at Saturn as a planet of karma, or like where like if you kind of go out of your boundaries, then it's going to remind you what your boundaries are. But at the same time, that's opposed Uranus really tightly, right?
Yeah.
So that is like, oh, these things are just going to blow up on him when they happen. And then, you know, it's like square the Mars. What's he going to do? Is he going to be like, oh, I should get better, I should be a good human, like I really need to toe the line here? No, it's square the Mars. He's like, I'm going to rip this up, man. I'm going to fight it to the death, and I'm going to fight it with my words, and I'm going to win every single time. So you know, that's a very tricky aspect to master there. And yeah, I'm not sure he's mastered it. I think it rides him rather than he rides it.
Yeah,
Know?
that's the ultimate question, because you look at it and he's a Libra ascendant. So I mean, Saturn's comfortable working with Libra, but again, it's really not with Libra, it's in Pisces, which is one
Right.
of those places for Saturn. So it's not, like you said, it's the slippery Saturn.
It's a slippery side, and it's good that you bring up the ascendant being in Libra, because like if we look at that Venus, right?
Mhm.
Is it combust, or is it chasmy in the heart of the sun, or is it
Yeah.
combust being burned by the sun? Uh, you know, if you get really strict with the rules of chasmy, it's 15 minutes, and that right there is 18 minutes.
Got
So
it.
it is edging on the combustion. And the reason why it's 15 minutes is because it's 30, the length of the sun in the sky is 30 minutes. So if it is within 15 minutes of either point of the sun, you can actually see it in front of the sun if you look at the sun when that happens.
Yeah, right.
And so I tend to go with that stricter definition, because I tend to think astrology is like, when you really get back down to it, visual in some sense. So, I mean, even if it's not combust, it's retrograde. You know, it's retrograding into that sun. So that creates a certain kind of like blindness to like your relationship with woman, your relationship with partying, and then that's the marker of his sun. And again, and then that Saturn's in the fifth. So there's a couple testimonies there.
Finances as well. Venus rules finances. And then
Venus of finances, yeah.
then in addition to that, we have Neptune in the second house, which is someone who's delusional about their money, about how they work, about how that stuff gets organized, you know. I mean, it's also their physical body, you know. I mean, sorry, their physical belongings, you know, and surroundings. But yeah, that's more corroboration for like no sense of measure around money as well.
Well, that's interesting, because I think one of the main effects of Brexit, which he really ushered through. I mean, it was set in motion long before him, and you know, like you're saying, like, well, maybe he's an actor. I mean,
Maybe he's the guy put in to get it done. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he was put in to get it done by like certain like financial or political powers in England, but excuse me, but that one of the main effects of the Brexit that he pushed through, which he was really into, like he was always a pro voice for it. Maybe not at the very beginning, but as soon as he knew it was happening, he was a pro voice for it. Well, one of the effects of that is they're like, oh, well, England will become more financially independent and wealthier, and yet the English economy has actually crashed. So maybe he had some diluted ideas about what the economic effects of his like cause d'etre that made him prime minister were going to be, because he believed in it so much that he was like, well, not really paying attention to the downsides. That could be the case, that could be the case. And maybe that's why he was put in, because of that belief. I mean, do you see in this chart any kind of notion of like deluded by his belief systems?
Um, well, ninth house, higher beliefs or higher mind. I don't like to use the term
Yeah.
belief so much, but like, most people are stuck actually in their beliefs because that's what they're kind of magnetizing. But when I look at the ninth, yeah, I see like definitely, I mean, fixated on higher ideas on that can be very, when you have a lot of planets in the ninth, that could be, and it's a Sagittarius house. So you could see an over focus on belief systems, certain ways of thinking, certain things. Definitely there's a total focus on that. And then you got the North Node destiny there. And I wanted to drop that in because I think when we do these readings, we always want to add in, are they fulfilling their destiny? Are the pools of the nodes, are they driving the individual where they need to go? And in this case, we got North Node in just arriving into Cancer, just beginning there. And it's very close to the 10th house cusp. So, on the stage of the world, yes, higher minded, higher ideas. I mean, we don't know his ideas personally. We know what he's done. Is it noble, the Brexit, in terms of what its intent was? I mean, sure, it could be said to be that, right? The outcome of that, I mean, we're talking about, again, the realm of the fool. We're talking about the stage of the world. Power is not something that can ever be held securely. It's always moving and changing.
Yeah. Yep.
It's almost a moon zone, right? So it's just where he's at right now. But let's get into where he's at right now. Let's look at the transits. Let's look at what just happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, just as a quick comment on that, I think he is fulfilling his destiny. And a note on that is like, if you are someone who's thrust into the world stage, like you said, like, the Taoists always urged people who are Taoists to never sit on the throne. Because to sit on the throne is to like just like have a short life. It's like once you're up there, like evil's coming after you on every single level it can, and maybe you're evil to get there. I don't know. I'm not judging him, but I think he is fulfilling his destiny, and I think part of like what he's going through now is still that. Like I think he's lived his chart well, even though he might end in disgrace because for whatever, like the people have decided that he's no good for England anymore.
Yeah, the only way to live on the stage of the world is to end it on your terms.
Right. Yeah. 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 I got that. I don't think he is capable of ending things on his terms.
Exactly.
With this chart.
There's a contrast here, right? He got exploded out. He got exploded.
Yeah, he did. The first chart I want to pull up here is not the resignation chart. We'll come back to that because I'd love to hear your comments on it. But the first chart I want to pull up, because I found it really fascinating, is his solar arc directed chart. And the solar arc directed chart, that's where you move every planet approximately 1 degree per life of the year. And this one is so interesting to me because okay, this is it's reflecting the whole sign. I have that in whole sign, but it's reflecting the chart exactly. When you look at a solar arc directed chart, you're looking at the part of fortune, you're looking at the ascendant, you're looking at the moon, you're looking at the sun, and you're looking at the midheaven, because those are what drive the matter of the person's life. Those 5 points. And in this, you have Saturn has exactly directed to opposite the moon. Now, what is Saturn? Saturn is the like, you shall not pass planet, right? And the moon is ruling the 10th, the place of rulership or kingship. And this is like Saturn coming over and going like, no, that's it. You no longer get this, like the height of political power. And it just strikes me that like we get this solar arc directed transit right now. I've seen some other people commenting on the zodiacal releasing of Boris Johnson. I haven't personally looked into that, so I'm not going to go to that. But like oftentimes when I find someone's life dramatically shifting, there is an aspect of the solar arc directions to either the part of fortune, the midheaven, the ascendant, the moon, or the sun. So it's the first thing I went to look for, and sure enough, there it is, just bam, right in the face. But to go to the transits, because the transits, as you were pointing out earlier, really fascinating. So when you look at these transits, what stand out?
Okay, I'm just looking at your chart. So we got him on the inner wheel, right? Yeah, he's on the inner wheel.
Yeah, he's on the inner wheel here. Yeah.
So we got the South Node transiting his Neptune. It looks like it already passed it. No, it's going the opposite direction. Yeah, we got South Node gonna hit his Neptune, going to hit it, and anytime the South Node transits or the outer planets in a natal chart, that's like, yeah, that's some karma being brought up. That's some everything being emptied out into the stage of where he's at, where the
Right. Yeah.
person is at in the world. Because I look at the South Node as kind of like an open space, and something that you can't hold. It's like an open bag all the time in your space. You can't hold it, and it just comes out. Whereas the North Node is where you're going. The South Node brings back all those things that you can't contain. It's like releasing the karma, what you've experienced, what you've done. And so that's interesting. What else? Mars is on the North Node, which is pointing to him doing what he needs to do to fulfill the destiny of the world stage. And Uranus is transit. Uranus is opposing Jupiter, his Jupiter. So whatever his vision is of expansion, expanding his, in this case, his what was it, his staff, his staffing, or like trying to elect someone or to get someone into office with him. Uranus is bringing chaos to that, destabilization of his vision.
Right. Yep.
What about you? What else?
You know what really struck out to me was this. I mean, it's as we both point out, oftentimes when we're giving readings, that what you're really looking for in the reading is the testimonies, the building of testimonies.
Yeah, right.
And there's like so we had the testimony of Saturn opposing the moon by solar arc direction, and it arrives at the exact same time we get this testimony of of Mars, which severs, opposing the moon by transit. So we have the solar arc and the transits, like both saying like, no, we are cutting you off right now. We are cutting you off from this position. I don't think there's any way he was going to survive that solar arc direction in that transit. Whatever else his time periods, his time lords are showing, the Fidaria or the zodiacal releasing, like just with those two testimonies, like his career trajectory up until now has been severed. And then that comes with, like, as you're pointing out, like these nodes. So the nodes are mostly usually in retrograde motion. Today they're in direct motion, but that node is moving into emptying out that Neptune, as you're saying. It's moving into emptying out his kind of like delusion, in my opinion, that he can get away with whatever he wants. Like he is now facing like, oh, actually, I am just a mortal man. It's kind of like Icarus's like wax is falling off the feathers, and now he is going to plummet hardcore into that cold English Channel. I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking. But to me, like looking at the transit chart, this was just inevitable. He was going down. There is no way he was going to survive this.
And there's a lot of corroborating elements. I mean, look at Neptune's in his sixth house, transiting his sixth house, which is work, career.
Right. Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
bringing delusion. And then we got Jupiter there as well, no sense of measure.
Yep.
Pluto's in his fourth, opposing his 10th house.
Yep.
And in his 10th, he's got the sun there shining. But it's let's see, his sun. No, that's transit sun. So that's
Yeah.
transit sun.
Transiting
So,
sun.
so that's a transit aspect of Pluto post sun. But
Yep.
that's still pretty significant because it means like something's being transformed.
Well, and the sun illuminates. So I feel like, that like his 10th house is like it's really in the public. It's really illuminated what's going on to him. He can't
Mhm.
hide. I think he hid for 24 hours. And like, the English media got really into the fact that he wasn't coming out and talking about it, except saying, I'm not going to retire. I'm not going to retire. So they started filming his cat at 10 Downing Street, and they started trying to get interviews with his cat, which is really, really funny. But that just points like the limelight was on him. He wasn't going to escape this. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
then
hear
there's
you
more
there.
corroborating elements that we with just yeah, with just Pluto being there in the fourth, like exploding um some kind of public stage because the sun is where all the light is, all the media attention is, right? As you were
Yep.
saying.
Yeah.
And then Pluto opposing it is something's going to be transformed, right?
Yeah. Well, another interesting thing to me is like, so we have Venus, the lesser benefic, conjuncting Mercury in the ninth house. And like from like my Twitter feed and the news reports I've been reading, um, Boris Johnson's like everybody in England despises him. No, nobody wants him. Nobody wants him to like survive. But like the prime minister of Ukraine and the head of or Biden, they both came out and they're like, hey, he's a great guy and we're going to keep working with England and we really appreciate everything that he's done for our relationships. And so that's that Venus transiting Mercury is like, well, he's still getting kudos, but not from the English. He's getting them from foreign lands and foreign nations.
Right.
They're
Right.
like, oh, it's all okay, but his people are like, it's the gallows.
And he's a I mean and you're right. I mean, sun is right there shining in the ninth in foreign lands, really. And
Yeah.
but he's a Gemini, so he's got the Janus face. He's got the two faces looking in two different directions, and
Yep.
then he's a moon in Scorpio, so it's not a stabilized moon. So his sense of
Yep.
self, there's no stability around that with a Gemini sun and a Scorpio moon. He's a
Yeah.
transformer, and he's a
Yep.
double-faced transformer. He's a two-faced
Yep.
transformer.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
That's
Well,
right.
I mean, that's like the meat of it. I really appreciate you asking me onto your show in order to do
Yeah,
a
yeah.
quick reaction, to this news event. I hope we can do it in the future because this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, these are good. These are fun. Thanks, Dorje. A
Yeah.
lot of insight you brought, making me look at the whole sign as I like to look at Placidus. But hey, it's fun.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes.
It's kind of cool actually to like have to converse with an astrologer who has a slightly different methodologies. Because what that does for me is that creates a certain sense uh, of like expanding into understanding that astrology itself is it's an art of divination. So you can have different divination techniques, but as long as we, the astrologers, are clear and pure,
Yeah,
like whichever techniques we're using, we're going to bring that forth and give a good delineation that provides insight that might not like necessarily be seen by just the media narrative that you're hearing.
yeah, yeah. No, it's great. Thanks so much for coming, and we'll see you guys next time.
Okay, take care.